Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to a moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to Sculpting the Future series brought to you by AlloClay. We're talking about a real shift in aesthetic medicine today, from borrowing fat the old way to assessing structural adipose tissue in a whole new category. Because liposuction is still the number one cosmetic surgical procedure in America, with 350,000 procedures done last year alone, and the US has logged more than 29 million minimally invasive procedures this year. That tells you two things. Demand is still here, but patients are increasingly asking for results that are more precise, more natural, and less burdensome. And at the same time, Tiger Aesthetics positions AlloClay as the first structural adipose tissue designed for aesthetic body procedures, a donor-derived option intended to provide cushioning support and targeted volume where fat naturally exists. So this is no longer just about taking fat away. It's about how surgeons restore, refine, and architect the body. Joining me right now is the master, Dr. Alfredo Hoyos, one of the most influential innovators in modern body contouring, the creator of high-definition liposculpture, and the founder of Total Definer. We're going to be chatting from liposuction to body architecture and how AlloClay is changing the game in natural fat. Dr. Hoyos, welcome to the show, superstar.
Thank you very much.
So let's chat why AlloClay changes the marketplace. So for years, one of the biggest limitations, Dr. Hoyos, you know this better than anyone, in body contouring was that if a patient wanted natural fat enhancement, they typically needed enough of their own fat to harvest first. But AlloClay is being positioned as a donor-derived structural adipose option that removes that barrier, which means this is as much a marketplace solution as it is a procedural one. So from your perspective, what problem has AlloClay finally solved in aesthetic medicine, and why does it deserve to be seen as its own category rather than just another filler conversation?
Okay, we have always, as surgeons and aesthetic doctors, we have mainly two problems. One is what we call projection. So usually we lose fat when we get older. We sometimes have deficits in some areas, and the ideal filler is actually fat. So that's the first problem, that the ideal is fat. We need to take it from somewhere, right? The second problem is usually the filler problem. And the filler problem goes to having a substance that can be biocompatible, but is not from the body. And that in some point is going to generate problems. Alloclay is fat, so is derived from allogenic fats. And it solves the first problem, the donor problem. We have to extract it from somewhere. But on the other side is the most biocompatible substance on earth. So it solves the second problem as well.
So, how are you currently using AlloClay in your own body contouring approach, and where are you seeing it shine the most? Whether that's hip dips, breast shaping,
Mhm.
contour correction, or other areas of body architecture. Talk to me.
So when we have problems, let's say that we have a liposuction and they have a little bit of irregularities or previous liposuction, a patient is not willing to have a second surgery because that's the thing. When you need fat, you need to have a surgery done. So this is an office procedure. First of all, you don't need a donor area. Second of all, third, it can solve the problems that were actually the deficit of fat was created from. So that's the hip dips, that's the irregularities of contour. Sometimes these kind of problems in terms of asymmetries, or in general, I think the key point right here is the breast tissue. So usually when we need volume nowadays, we need implants. And this is the main solution. Nowadays is the gold standard. But we are seeing a new development in terms of implants. I think what we see is a new era in terms of volumization. Why does it solve the problem? Because we have patients nowadays that are not tolerating the implants. So the explantation problem, so we have to remove previous implant. We don't have anything to restore the volume with. And the patient suddenly ends with a deformity. So the essence of this is that we have now a solution that we didn't have before. The explanted patient for me is one of the top patients nowadays because he's a patient that is not willing to have an implant because they already removed the implant for some reason and they don't have enough volume to restore it. So they have deformities already. The second part is the patient who wants to have some breast augmentation, some degree of breast augmentation, not up for replacing big implants, but anything from 150, 200 cc's and below. Some patients are not willing to have implants. Nowadays, we're in an era that patients are taking care more of themselves and they don't want to have any foreign body inside of them. So I think this is the future in terms of what we are going ahead, in terms of gaining volume, but at the same time not having foreign bodies inside of you.
You're speaking my love language. You know why? Because I was that explant patient. I had implants for 14 years that eventually failed me. And when I explanted, I was left with no solution. And I refused to implant anything in my body. And I had alloclay done in September of 2025, and it was fantastic. I increased 1 cup size. It was easy. It was under 90 minutes, local anesthesia, and you are 100% correct. It solved a huge problem for me because I didn't have enough fat to give, and I was gonna just be okay with my little pancakes. But now I got some full ones, and that's thanks to Alloclay, which brings me to the next question. How meaningful is that no harvesting advantage in your practice, especially for lean patients or for women who want refinement but are not ideal candidates for traditional fat transfer?
Well, it's huge because it converts something that used to have a surgery that needed an OR. It actually is an expense for the surgeon and for the patient in terms of financial and time and effort, added the complications that it may arise versus an office procedure. And nowadays, the problem of the donor side, that is, where are we going to extract the fat from? Where are we going to get this filler from? Is gone. Now the problem is that the sky is the limit. So we can use whatever we want. It's actually up to the surgeon, up to the person that is gonna is gonna put this filler in. But it's an office procedure, so it can be done on the local. Is less painful. The recovery is very fast, and among other things, it has, I think, the perfect combination of what we call the biocompatibility and easy.
Yep. And that really feels like the unlock because it expands access without forcing the patient into a bigger procedure just to get to the starting line. So like you said. So let's
Yeah.
talk about safety. Tiger states that Aloclay is terminally sterilized, intended for single patient use, has minimized DNA content, reduced free oil fraction, and is intended for localized subcutaneous placement. Its safety information also notes possible complications including nodules, pain, infections, hematoma, and it has a laundry list, right? So, what gives you confidence in a product like Alloclay from a science and safety standpoint? And what should both surgeons and patients understand about appropriate use and patient selection?
I think the main objective right now that is something that alloclay solves and target solve is the way to process cells in a way that they will react to the immunity in terms of immunity to the host. So I think they solved the problem that was the holy grail in terms of fillers and in terms of putting new cells, meaning cells from other person, into your body without generating reaction. I think they perfected this system. I think it's so important that right now we can say it's a new era of not only the filling but also the allotransplantation of fat cells or other types of cells into a person that needs it.
Yes, and it does go through all the rigorous testing of any other uh, organ donation process does. It goes through, in this particular case, a 5-step purification process. They strip it of the DNA. It's very safe, and the FDA is also in the mix, which makes me feel so much better.
No, exactly. I could say that it's even safer than the traditional fillers nowadays.
100% agreed. And I appreciate your answer because innovation only matters if it's paired with discipline, indications, patient education, and clinical verification. And Alloclay has done all of that. Now, let's chat about the future of body architecture. So, the bigger trend line here is hard to ignore. ASAP says liposuction remained the top cosmetic surgery in 2024 and 2025, but at the same time, the industry is clearly moving toward more refined, customizable and less invasive body strategies. I mean, that's where a product like Aloclay becomes bigger than a trend. It really starts to look like infrastructure for where body contouring is headed next. So, as someone who helped move this field from basic fat removal into true body design, Dr.
Mhm.
Hoyos, where do you see Aloclay fitting into the future of body architecture over the next few years?
It actually gives us a solution of a problem that we're not having yet, but we're going to have in the next 5 to 10 years. And it's what I call the Ozempic era.
Oh,
The GLP-1s are here to stay. So everybody is going to lose weight very easily, which is good because we're going to become healthier. We're going to have less fat. So the problem number one is that liposuction was only to remove fat. So with artistical body contouring, we solve the first problem. With high definition, you do not only liposuction, but you actually contour the body to make a more athletic physique without a lot of fat. So we solve the problem of the artistic versus just removing fat. But the second problem is the problem of the person that is losing weight and is going to have less fat. But they still will need to have some volume. They're going to lose volume. And we will have suddenly a lot of patients that will not have a donor site to take the fat from to begin with. And it's something that we're not going to see right now. It's something that we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years when these GLP-1s become better and more evolved. We're going to have more and more these problems. So I think we have already a solution to a problem that we're going to face in the next few years.
well, you said it, and we are out of time. We covered it all. Dr. Hoyos, thank you. This was such a strong conversation because it really clarified where the field is going, not just in theory, but in actual practice. Thank you for educating us.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much, Sam, for your time. And thank you to the audience.
Guys, to follow Dr. Alfredo Hoyos, you can visit him directly on the gram. He's very active. He's got a really cool page. You can follow him at Alfredo Hoyos MD, and you can check out more of his high def work at Dr. Hoyos HD. You can check out his website, alfredohoyos.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
This is A Moment of Zen in partnership with Aloclay. Looking to add volume or contouring to your body? What if there was a non-surgical solution to increase volume naturally? No liposuction, no fillers, just real lasting transformation with little downtime. Consider Aloclay, an innovation in body contouring. Follow on social at Aloclay. Aloclay is intended to be applied subcutaneously in localized areas of the body to provide cushioning and support to the patient's body where adipose tissue naturally exists. Aloclay does not contain viable cells and has no systemic effect and is not dependent upon the metabolic activity of living cells for its primary function. This allograft is intended for single patient use only. Human tissue shall not be offered or dispensed for veterinary use.